What's up guys, it's Daz here, but you don't really care. As you know what else I've been following lately? To the Moon, or more specifically, the build up to its sequel, Finding Paradise. And the second minisode of To the Moon has just been released. And as I'm gonna say Kangao. Do tell me if I'm wrong. But he said himself, with this minisode finished, I'll be going back to working on Finding Paradise, i.e. episode 2. The idea for it has actually been brewing for quite a while now, so I think I know exactly where it's going. So now seems like the best time to boil up some speculation for the upcoming game. So obviously, since we've pretty much seen nothing from Finding Paradise itself, we'll have to look at the rest of the series and put pieces together. So today, we'll be going over chunks of To the Moon, A Bird Story, as well as Minisode 1 and 2. So be prepared for spoilers for them all. And just before I start, at the time of making this video, Minisode 2 is the latest thing to have happened and come out. Though if more stuff is revealed over the next few months, do message me and remind me, though I will be watching the Freebirds Games Facebook page myself, and I have the website bookmarked too. But still, just in case, do keep me up to date, if I miss anything. Right, let's start off with To the Moon. While there's not a whole lot to mention here, there are some things. So first of all, the game explores the basic mechanics of how this series is going to work. Dr. Neil Watts and Dr. Eva Rosalind are employees of Sigmund Corporation, and get summoned by the dying old and are given the task to fulfill their dying wish, by altering their memories through the use of this slightly futuristic machine. Then they just link the dying wish to their earlier memories, and usually that gets the whole ball rolling to the point where the memories change as if they've fulfilled their dying wish, essentially making them die happy. Now that's the basics of the game, and in relation to Finding Paradise, there's nothing dramatically significant within To the Moon that reveals some massive point in the game yet, as far as we know. However, it is confirmed that Finding Paradise will continue to feature Neil and Eva. And in case that doesn't make any sense to you, Khan described it as being that To the Moon and Finding Paradise are like Iron Man and Thor, and Neil and Eva are Nick Fury. Here's a visual demonstration. Khan made this himself, and God, he's a genius. However, something to note from To the Moon is Neil's apparent addiction. In the game, there is a point where Eva accidentally stumbles across some powerful painkillers which Neil seems to have cravings for. Naturally, he denies everything. Towards the end of the game, we then begin to see Neil have withdrawal symptoms as shown by the flashing red, which reflects pain. Though others have said it shows Neil's in the machine watching his own memories of himself going into other people's memories, and it gets all weird, but I think people are overthinking it. After the flash of red, Neil turns away and takes some more. That's addiction, alright. That's pretty much the only major thing I can pick out of this game, at least for Finding Paradise. Though there was also the whole duplicate Neil moment during the ending where two Neils seemed to be in the same scene, again sparking ideas about Neil watching his own memories, but I believe that was confirmed by Khan himself to just be a mistake on his part. Would have been an interesting plot point though. Right, moving on to A Bird Story, and things are a lot more strongly connected. For starters, we follow a young boy with his imaginative adventures alongside his bird friend. We see him enjoying days in the rain, flying through the sky on a paper airplane, and having to deal with the harsh realities of life. Not that he accepts it. Something that really stands out about this game is how abstract it becomes. Because we are following a little boy with a vivid imagination, things don't always go out as you'd expect in reality. Whether it's jumping off your apartment building, walking through the school hallway into the great outdoors, or, again, flying on a paper airplane. But the thing that really links A Bird Story to Finding Paradise is the ending. After letting the bird go, we discover that the boy we've been watching and playing as this whole time is the next patient of Neil and Eva. And hey, it even says Finding Paradise. That's pretty conclusive. So the events of A Bird Story occur way before the time of Neil and Eva, since they'll obviously show up at the end of this boy's life and we've experienced the start. Although, interestingly, it is said that there won't be any overlapping scenes from ABS in Finding Paradise. And I guess that kinda makes sense, since the scenes in this game are far too off the wall to be real. But I wonder how far that quote goes. Are they saying that Neil and Eva will just avoid these particular moments in his life because some other memory is more important? Or will we simply be seeing the same events, but this time in a more real environment? If that's the case, then I wonder how that will work. I mean, sure, walking through a school hallway into a playground can easily be real if you add a door and a wall to it. Or flying on a paper airplane could just be running around with a paper airplane in his hand pretending. So how does the boy escape being cornered on a cliff? I mean, I doubt he jumps off or something, so what happens? And while we're looking at this boy, what happens later in his life? I like to think he continues with focusing on birds, perhaps becoming a bird enthusiast or something. And actually, if you think about it, To the Moon and a Bird story could also be connected by the folding of paper, with River constantly making origami rabbits and the little boy making paper airplanes. Maybe we'll see origami birds in the future. That's possible to make, right? Of course, that is if the little boy even remembers the bird after all these years. It's always possible we don't see these events because they're no longer relevant to the guy's dying wish, or if he wanted to get a little darker. When the boy was still very little, he could have been in a coma of some kind, and with the longing for company, created this entire world where he finally had a friend to be with. Of course, this is probably highly unlikely, though I have seen some theories saying that the bird is a figment of that boy's imagination, which is something. We can't really tell yet. And with the title Finding Paradise, the game sounds kind of vague. And since To the Moon was pretty much Johnny's wish, does that mean the boy's dying wish was to find paradise? If that's correct, it's quite vague, and I wonder how Neil and Eva would succeed in doing that. Does the boy want to fly off to some kind of perfect island or something, reminiscent of the islands in the airplane scene? I have no idea what this paradise could be other than that, really. Now that's pretty much all the coverage I can do on A Bird Story. Boy's the next patient. That's pretty much it. So now, going back to the focus of Neil and Eva, let's look at the minisodes of To the Moon. Now, Minisode 1 doesn't reveal an enormous amount of information, really. It just gives the players an inside view of the company the two work for. However, there is one main theme revealed that the developer omitted from To the Moon as it would distract players from the main story. And that is protesters, presumably against the methods of altering someone's memories despite it being the wish of the dying. The argument here is that the only people who really support Sigmund are those who are already dead, dying, or are a somewhat significant figure to the dead and dying. And those who do support Sigmund don't really seem to be retaliating the protesters. Though really, looking at the ethics of Sigmund's methods, everything seems pretty fine to me. The dying give their consent as they're the ones who requested in the first place. Participants are under the least amount of harm possible. Most pain will probably be from the occurrence of dying of old age, if that even hurts. The dying aren't necessarily deceived, though I guess this could be argued in cases such as what happens in To the Moon. Confidentiality, I expect this can be maintained. The biggest issue really is the right to withdraw, which is kind of impossible for someone who is on their deathbed really. But even then, everything else seems to outweigh the negatives of this. Of course, these ideas of ethics come from psychology, so maybe things are different in the sciences, but from what I saw, it was things like objectivity, which isn't really too relevant, and I doubt it's the kind of thing that would spark protests. Are the protesters angry about the thought of changing someone's memories so that they forget something that might be significant to someone else, like deleting all memories of a certain friend or something? I don't know, it seems a bit extreme really. The only bad thing I see about the whole process is the fact that it's not real. Even when accomplishing their dreams, they only remember themselves succeeding. They never actually become the successful person they want to be. It's all unfortunately in their head. So, moving on to Minisode 2, and here are where things get a little kooky. So we get to see more into Neil and Eva as characters. We see that Neil has some kind of dad issues, and while he wants to hear his voice, doesn't actually want to speak with him. He also seems to contemplate recording his dad's voice for later use. At first I thought this might mean his dad was dead and he wanted to hear his voice again, but if he can reply with, "Son," that's obviously not the case, and I'm just guessing this is his dad. It could just be another parental figure or some kind. We also see Neil being suspicious with the memory machine and trying to make something work. We never actually see this continue as he is disrupted by the power going out, so who knows what's going on there. And right at the end of the minisode, we also see Neil records the party he has with Eva, her family, and Lily's family. So I guess that's heartwarming. Unless he was recording something else, I guess that's possible too. But something was recorded, and it will probably pop up later. On to Eva, and we get to see a section of her family. But with her, things get a little trippy. When driving from work, she sees herself. So what does that mean? Is she having hallucinations from being in the device too much or something? Or perhaps the Eva we follow is just an algorithm of one of her memories, and the real Eva is the one on the road, who is going through her own memories using the device. The reason she disappears, if this is the case, would be that she deactivated her interaction, so those in her memory cannot perceive her. I don't know entirely what's going on, though if she's looking through her own memories, then the extra Eva is from the future, and judging by her looks, not too much in the future. Whether this pops up in Finding Paradise or the game after that, if there even is one, we don't know. But a reason for going into this memory could be that Eva in the future discovers the thing Neil's been working on in secret, and he's using her own memories to go back to the scene and investigate. Or of course, I'm overthinking everything. Then again, that ending. We see Eva for a moment in the device watching this memory back. So yeah, something's definitely not right here. Other ideas I've seen with this is that later on in the story, maybe even in Finding Paradise, Neil is gonna die, And so, to make herself feel better, Eva is altering her own memories so that she can spend time with him for Christmas instead of leaving him and spending it away with her family. That makes perfect sense. Another idea for altering their own memories is that Neil is altering his own memories when he's on the device so that he forgets he shuts down the machine, and that is how he restarted it himself without knowing. Although this seems a little backwards to me, since how can he alter his memory so that he forgets he turned off the machine when he turned off the machine? Surely that means the device is inactive and he wouldn't be able to access it to forget his memory of shutting it down. And why would he even do that? My idea for how Neil did this is that, and hey, I'm not saying it's correct, but just an idea on my part, basically, it could be possible that Neil is also here looking in from the device, and that is the Neil that shuts it down while the other Neil is working on the machine. I know this is getting kinda complicated, although this theory does not work well with the Neil is dead theory, so obviously not everything I say is correct. I'm just spouting a series of ideas that may or may not be right. Speaking of ideas, here is one last one that is more than a little complicated. It has to do with going back to this memory and altering it. Is it possible that Neil and Eva are both trying to change this memory to benefit themselves? So going back to the idea that Neil is doing some sneaky work, and future Eva is there to discover what is going on. Upon realizing what's going on, bad stuff happens in the future for Neil, because Eva knows about this secret thing. So, in retaliation, future Neil goes back to this memory and shuts down the power so that the memory Neil cannot continue, hides his work, and Eva cannot discover what's going on. I'm not quite sure how well this theory holds, as that would mean that going back into an altered memory would still show the events of the memory being altered. So even if Eva went in and changed something 2 months ago, Neil could go into it now and see Eva changing it within the memory. With that idea, the whole theory goes a bit south, so I guess to avoid this problem, it could always be possible that both future Eva and future Neil go in at the same time, and that would allow them to interact with the memory in 2 different places, both in the road and in the basement. But I don't know, for all I know, there isn't even a future Eva and a future Neil, just hallucinations on both their parts, forgetting vital memories or creating false ones. But hey, that's all I've got for now. This'll be another one of the analytical series I'll do as more updates come, so look forward to that. And put down your own theories on what on earth's going on down below. For now, my name's been Daz, you didn't really care, and I'll see you in a bit.